Erosion of that foundation, which is built on sand, and that is the dollar system, is that we can continue this for a while longer. But there's no hesitation now in Washington, D.C. to hold off. If we can bail out Wall Street, we can bail out every other person. I mean, the budget has been presented as $3.6 trillion, $1.8 trillion of debt. Deficit this year is going to be bigger than that, and spending will be bigger, and the militarism will spread. But all that is putting pressure on the dollar. Now, when the dollar starts losing value rapidly, just as the house of cards came down rapidly, if you study monetary history, the end stages of the destruction of a currency, it comes rapidly too. There will be gradual inflation, but then skyrocketing. Runaway inflation comes and goes quickly. Now, that's dangerous. That's dangerous because we can send all the checks out that we want to from Washington, D.C., but you won't be able to send them out fast enough. And yes, nobody's going to be short of their Social Security check, but the big question is what will it buy? You say, well, it won't matter because the government's going to give us our medical care and they'll give us our food stamps. It won't work that way.
Right.
So this is what we have to be prepared for. And of course, that's why we have a campaign for liberty, and that's why we're here. And because you're here, because you've responded, because you have supported this campaign and other campaigns, and you're doing a lot on your own, I'm encouraged. I'm enthusiastic about this because I know you're there. There was a long time when I didn't know how many of you were there. And you know, there's no way you can count the remnant. There's always a few. But the great thing is, there sure is a remnant. There are a number of people out there that knew and studied this. But what about the young people that have joined us? That's what's exciting about this. Every time some young people stop at my office, more so now than it used to be, like it's very frequent in Washington, they come by and they come in, and if I'm there, I'll talk with them and speak with them, and probably sign a constitution, and probably tell them, well, one thing I know is you probably know this Constitution a lot better than people over in the House floor. I wish I could pass some out over there. But I always ask them, I said, how long have you been interested? And very often the young people bring their parents, and they've introduced their parents. That's always interesting. And then I'll say, what was it? Was it the whole message of freedom? Or what was it that got your attention? Yes, they like the message of freedom, but when they get to the specifics, the two things that they mention the most, one is, this is great, it's the Constitution. They know I defend the Constitution. That's what caught their attention. And the other one is sound money. The Federal Reserve and honesty in money. So that is the thing that generation will do with us. Hopefully it'll be soon. The first step was described to you a little while ago. Before we end the Fed, we're going to audit the Fed. Once it's revealed what they do, I think the American people will be with us. And you know, it's going to be real hard, no matter whom you talk to, about transparency now of Treasury and the Fed and where this money's going. Republicans and Democrats, liberals and conservatives and populists and libertarians, everybody say, yeah, you have to know what's going on. I don't think if that bill ever came to the floor, I don't believe there'd be one person that would vote and say, no, we want a totally secret Federal Reserve System. The big job will be to get it there. But they deal in trillions of dollars, and they don't have to tell us a word. I mean, they are more powerful than the other three branches of government. But the positive side of this is we do have the authority. We do have the authority, but we have the responsibility. Congress has the responsibility, but we have the responsibility to get Congress off their duffs and make sure that they look into this and take care of it. It is up to us. Freedom needs to be put back together. We need to think of it as a unit, that the individual is important, and that governing comes locally. Governing comes, we must govern our own lives. We must govern within our families and our local community and our churches. It's not that people want to call us anarchists and we don't want any rules and regulations. I was on a radio station just 2 nights ago, and it was a very liberal radio station. They were very nice and they let me explain, but they just couldn't understand this economic issue. They just had to have these regulations. They couldn't get it in through their mind because they do care about poor people. I think most of them have humanitarian concerns. But if they would only look at these statistics and show what happens when people allow the government to make the decisions. If you have somebody with central economic planning, they make the decision, usually wrong, it hurts all of us. Now, if we make individual choices or local government choices, they're not always going to be right. We live in an imperfect world. We're all imperfect, so we make mistakes. So that means we want to limit the damage done by those mistakes. And the market is so wonderful in sorting all this out. The market is, we don't like to use the word democracy because there's the wrong connotation of that. But the market is democratic in the sense that it's the ultimate vote. The free market is designed not to protect big labor, not to protect big business, not to protect big government, not to protect the banks or internationals. The free market is designed for the most important purpose of taking care of the consumer. And everybody is a consumer. And every time you spend a penny, used to be said a penny, now I guess you have to spend $1 to count it. Every time you spend any money at all, you're voting. And if you have a free market, it's a tough business. Because if you're in business and they don't like your product, or your cost is too high, you go out of business. Instead of everybody being propped up and diluted into low interest rates and guarantees and all this moral risk, moral hazard that we create through the monetary system, that stuff would be individualized, and companies would come and go, and there would be individual places where this would happen, but overall, the consumer would always be protected. And just as we protect individual liberty, the market protects the consumer. And this is where prosperity would come from. Freedom is something that has been only tried recently in the history of the world. And because through the thousands and thousands of years of recorded history, true freedom has only been tried, several hundred years in a serious way. And the prosperity has been unbelievable. And here we are about to reject this experiment with liberty, and yet this is where the prosperity came from. But the neat part about the recognition of individual freedom, and this is not only economic, what it does, it allows the release of all creative energy that man has. That he then becomes a creative person, and all this creativity comes together and meshes together. No economic planner could do that. And that is what is so wonderful about it. And the recognition of that this is a God-given right to your liberties, and that it sort of reminds me of the parable that you really don't have to fret, and that that we will be taken care of. That little parable doesn't say that we can't and shouldn't work. But if we do the right things, we really don't have to fret about it. And that's why I was saying that if we had our liberties and sound money, I wouldn't worry about tomorrow. I think we could take care of ourselves, and we could take care of our planet as well too. Under these circumstances, it's a tremendous environmental thing as well, because you have no right to pollute your neighbor's property. People who own their property always take better care of their property than when the government owns the property.